I want to talk to you guys today. If you've been in service for a long time already serving God, or if you're just beginning serving God, or you want to serve God, you have to understand that sometimes the place where you start is not going to be that exciting. Can I start there? That does not mean you're not serving God. But sometimes the hidden place, the unrecognized place, the unnoticed place, despite your giftings that you know God can use tremendously, that place is not often very exciting. But it's part of the seasoning. It's part of the preparedness. We see later on, when the battle of Goliath happened, we see how after David's seasoning, his strength began to be revealed, right? In 1 Samuel, this I will read. In 1 Samuel 17:33, when David came and saw that Goliath was challenging the entire Israelite army and nobody was brave enough to fight him, to fight Goliath, David comes, he stands up, he goes to Saul the king, and this is what he said to him, hey, I'll take care of it. What does he say? When David said to Saul he would take care of it, Saul said to David in verse 33, you're not able to go against the Philistine to fight with him, for you are a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. Side note, David here was approximately 15 to 17 years of age. He was 11 to 12 tending the sheep, and now he's about 15 to 17 years of age challenging Goliath. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep his father's sheep. And when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after it and struck it, delivered the lamb from its mouth, and when it rose against me, I caught it by its beard and struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, seeing that he has defied the armies of the living God. Moreover, David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of the Philistine. And Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. We see here that David was ready for the fight, but why was he ready for the fight? Because he had been seasoned in the hidden place. He remained faithful in the hidden place. When he was tending the sheep, it wasn't always exciting, but then there were days where he had a moment of exhilaration. There were moments where what he was having to do required him to step up in a way that he might not have otherwise stepped up in, and it required him to defend the thing that he was doing. You know what I'm saying? He was tending the sheep. Listen, if you come and all you do is organize chairs in the service of God, man, defend those chairs like it was no tomorrow. Can I be honest with you guys? And everybody who serves knows this. Every single Sunday, who's the one putting the chairs back in order? Who? Me. And I figured out today the best system to do it. You see that line in the floor right there? That's where these two go on that side. That's where those two go on that side. And that little mark where there was tape that used to be on the floor, that's where the first starts. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And that chair right there goes right where that line is right there. Oh, yeah. Look at it. Am I lying? I'm not lying. I'm going to tell you, look, and this is the pastor of the church speaking, guys. But when you're tending to the chairs and serving, tend to them fiercely. Like, don't let any person come to church and move the chair out of place. You understand what I'm saying? Like, there's days and that's not exciting, by the way. But there were days, and we see it from David, where he was out there. It was boring half the time, but then in the hidden place, there's sometimes where it will be exciting, and it will be exhilarating, and it will be part of the seasoning. And then guess what happens? Then there'll be other days where it's just boring again. Can I speak facts to you guys? He was tending his father's sheep, and then he was fighting with lions and bears. I can't help it. And tigers, oh my. Playing the harp in the king's court. See, sometimes we overlook this, that David, not only was he a tender of sheep, not only did he fight Goliath, but he was also a talented musician. He played the harp in King Saul's court. 1 Samuel 16:23, and so it was that whenever the Spirit from God was upon Saul, that David would take a harp and play it with his hand. Then Saul would become refreshed and well, and the distressing spirit would depart from him. Sometimes when we're serving God, the hidden place, sometimes it's just not that exciting. Sometimes it's really exciting. Sometimes it's very heartwarming. Sometimes it's not. But David was doing all that he had to do because he was in his process of seasoning in his service. What did we read before? He served his own generation. All of this is him serving in his generation. Your service to God will look like different things in different seasons. But it is all preparing you for the fullness of your service. Do you understand? Like, it's not about getting to the peak. It's about serving where you are along the way. So God continued to move you along that way. There's a reality. If you want to serve God, there is a hidden price that you have to pay before you step into any kind of public service. And that public service doesn't need to be the pulpit where you're preaching as a pastor. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But there is a hidden price to pay for any service. Do you understand? It is what it is. Like, for example, the worship team gets up here and they sing. And if they're not preparing their hearts before they come to sing, they're not doing it right. There's a hidden price to pay. You understand? There's a hidden price to pay if you're going to serve God. You will never, listen up, you will never be able to slay giants in service unless you wrestled some bears, wrestled some lions, tended some sheep, sung some songs. Do you hear what I'm saying? You want to slay giants? You better wrestle a bear first. And that happens in the hidden place when nobody's looking, when there's no glory to what you're doing. You want to serve God, you got to be ready in the hidden place. I can't tell you how many people over the course of my 23 years in walking with the Lord have said to me, hey, I want to serve God. Okay, here's the first step. Serve on Sunday. Matter of fact, don't even serve, just show up on Sunday. Let's start there. You want to serve God? Show up on Sunday. I want God to use me. Okay. When I want to do some work in my house and I need a hammer and I can't find the hammer, guess what? I can't use the hammer. You want to be used by God? You better be found by God. I love Danny in the back. Danny gives the old Southern, well, without saying a word. He just... You want to be used by God? Don't tell me you want to be used by God if you are not found by Him or His other servants. Don't tell me. That's a lie. That's a lie. If you cannot be faithful in a small group, you will not be faithful in a congregation. Are you hearing me? Believe me, I'm saying this because I love you. And I'm saying this because I know that God has plans for you and call over your life. And we can't just keep tending the sheep. Just tend the sheep and then run away with the lions. No! You will fight battles in your service to God. And sometimes the battle is because you're bored. You're bored. You're tired. I'm going to get into that a little bit more in the next couple weeks. But obedience and faithfulness is the key in every season. Why was David a man after God's own heart? God gave us the answer. Because He who will do all my will. We read it earlier. You have to be faithful to God, to doing His will, if you're going to remain faithful in service. This is all part of the seasoning. You cannot be disobedient in your service now and expect to be obedient in your service later. Don't work that way. We need to understand that there is a hidden price to pay before you step into public. We need to then demonstrate boldness in the launching space, because there is a reality that some of our service will be in one way or another way, but God will use us in different ways, and He'll begin to make us to grow and put us out there. Okay, but what was recognized for David by many as his debut was Goliath. Am I right or am I wrong? Most of us, whether we're familiar with the story or not, we recognize David's his debut was the fight with Goliath, yes or no? Right? That's what we recognize. But the reality is David fought Goliath, and then he didn't become king of anything until another 7 to 8 years later. But when the time came for him to be bold in what was that launching space, to show what he could do, what did he do? He did it, right? What did he say? He said in 1 Samuel 17:32, he said, "Let no man's heart fail because of Goliath. Your servant will go and fight with the Philistine." He was ready for the battle. We know why he was ready, because he had been seasoned when it was not yet his season. He was preparing when it was not yet time to be prepared. And so he was ready to go. He was ready to be bold. He gave the reason for his boldness because he had fought some stuff before, and he had fought with somebody who he was now going to be fighting with. 1 Samuel 17:37, "Moreover, David said, 'The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine.'" See, he knew who he was, and he knew who was with him. How did he know who he was and who was with him? Because he was bold in his abilities because he was tried in secret. He was bold in his God because he was connected to his God in secret. He didn't say, "Oh, I'm about to go fight Goliath. Give me 1 second, Saul. Let me go pray." He was ready to fight Goliath because he had already been prayed up. Are you hearing me? Like all too often in our service, we say, "All right, I'm about to go do this. Now let me consecrate myself. Now let me make myself holy." And I'm not saying you don't need to take it to another level, but the Word of God says to be ready in season and out of season, because you don't know when your season is coming, so you might as well just remain seasoned. Are you hearing me? Whatever battle you're fighting, it's preparing you for your season. So I don't know why I have to go through this with my spouse and this and that. Well, maybe God's calling you to a season for marital restorations, to help other marriages restore their marriages. I don't know. I don't know why I'm broke. I don't know why I have to do this. Well, maybe God's calling you to restore other people who have also been broke. Are you hearing me? We don't know. But you have to learn to be bold in your abilities if you've been tried in secret, and bold in your God because you've been connected to Him in secret. You cannot have a failure to launch when it is time to go. I remember when I first started, well, you guys already know, and where's Rich? Where's Rich? Oh, he's outside, okay. He was making fun of me last week because I told him my first ministry was the dance ministry, and, there was nothing hidden about that ministry. Let me tell you about that. But also after that, it became, I had the desire, I had the holy burden to launch a small group. So I was leading a small group. My wife and I were doing it in English in a Spanish congregation because that was the only way I was trying to preach. I wasn't trying to preach. I barely spoke Spanish. Let me just tell you that. Now I'm perfectly fluent, but I barely spoke Spanish at that time. And I wasn't trying to speak in Spanish. But guess what? When you're faithful in one season, He promotes you across seasons. And so couple years after having launched our initial group, having been faithful in service in whatever ministry, God called me to lead a men's retreat. It was about 150 men at that particular retreat. But guess what? It was in Spanish. I'm like, "Lord, give me the gift of tongues right now." You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not sure this is going to go over very well. Your spirit better minister to their hearts, because my language is not going to hit them. But I got to tell you that God had prepared me for that time. And if I wasn't ready to go, there's so much I can tell you just about that first retreat that I don't have time to today. But that God will use you powerfully when you're ready to go. You cannot have a failure to launch when it's go time.